What's good, everybody? Welcome in to the Early Edge and your prop spectacular that is back. This is going to be our time every single week during the NFL season, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Everything you could possibly want in the world of props. But before we get to the stars of the show, we want to tell you that the bosses called me today and they said, Coach, we want to do everybody at home a solid. We want everybody walking around in Early Edge gear. So for the rest of the year, we're going to give 20% off all the Early Edge merch. You can see the QR code there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube, or you can click the link in the show description and get all the Early Edge merch that you want. Now, one of the shows that was so incredibly popular was this one a year ago. But it's not just about the picks. Yes, PropStarz was profitable. Yes, Uncle Dave had a better than 50% record. But it's about the fun of doing it together. So I was thrilled when the bosses said they locked these two up for another season. So let's bring in the stars of the show. You know them, you love them, and with all due respect to Alex, who I'm with on a daily basis, Uncle Dave Richard, welcome back to our show. What's up, big boy?
Gentlemen. Oh.
Yeah! Oh.
Come say hello to your uncle.
It would not be the same without the sweat suit jacket. Oh, 7 months. It's been too long. You ready to go?
It has. There's been nothing that we could do a player prop on for the last 7 months. Give me a break.
That is very true. Now,
Let's go. There was a draft. There was all kinds of stuff.
By the way, last night, one of my drafts, because I'm going to kick Alex's ass in our fantasy football league, I scored the first touchdown of the game. I had him in my fantasy league. Yeah. So speaking of Alex, one of my favorite people, but also he's now an enemy in first time I'm ever playing fantasy is this year. First time ever, because he got me into it. Alex, well, yeah, first time ever. Alex, what's good, man?
What is good, Coach? This feels like a family reunion that you look forward to, getting to be with my long-lost Uncle Dave. I feel so happy. I've got this warm, tingly feeling inside. I couldn't be more excited. I've been counting down the days to this, Coach. Coach, you're like my surrogate father, and then Dave is like my uncle. So, yeah. I'm happy.
I wonder how many minutes it was going to take for us to say something a little bit off color, and it took all of 3. All warm and tingly. I don't need to know how tingly you are inside, Alex. All right, so quickly, I can tell you that we have started a new show with Alex because this just isn't enough time for him to talk. So, Twitter Spaces or Instagram every Wednesday. We're still working on the start time, but you'll be able to ask all kinds of questions. We did it yesterday. It was a huge hit, so we're going to do it every single week. But gentlemen, we've got to get to our picks for this show. So let's jump right into it. And Alex, I'm going to start with you because everybody's talking about the Ravens today. Everybody's talking about the fact that Lamar Jackson didn't get his contract done. So talks are off at the Jets, laying 6.5. I love the Ravens, but this isn't a show about sides. It's about props. Start us off.
Yeah, Coach. I'm loving myself some Lamar Jackson, over 224.5 passing yards. Baltimore came into last season with a plethora of injuries to their entire backfield. That seems to once again be the case this season, with nearly every running back atop the depth chart with some sort of injury. J.K. Dobbins, highly questionable coming into week 1. Even if he does suit up, he'll be on a pitch count. Gus Edwards, not going to be active. You have guys like Mike Davis, a journeyman, Kenyon Drake, who was released by the Raiders just a few weeks ago, atop of this depth chart for Baltimore. It looks like, we'll see some sort of combination, a split in the backfield between Drake and Mike Davis, which I think Baltimore would like to run the football a lot more because obviously they got away from that last year. We saw them not make the playoffs as a result for the first time in a while. But I just don't think they have the personnel to run the football, at least until we get Dobbins back healthy and Gus Edwards back healthy. So I think just out of pure necessity, we're going to have to see this Ravens team throw the ball a lot. This is an excellent matchup to do that. First of all, Lamar last season eclipsed this line in 9 of 11 starts. He actually averaged 261 passing yards per game. He gets the Jets. The Jets were 32nd, dead last in DVOA last season. This is a very porous pass defense as well. I also think with Joe Flacco under center for the Jets, he's going to push the Ravens more than Zach Wilson would. I actually think Joe Flacco is an upgrade at quarterback for the Jets. And despite the Ravens being 6.5 or 7-point favorites, I think this game actually has a chance to be sneakily competitive, which will help this prop, in my opinion. I think Lamar made a bunch of strides last season, especially throwing the football. We're going to get back to that. This is a very, very low number. I love this prop, over 224.5 passing yards for Lamar.
And don't think for a second that Lamar Jackson is not going to want to show off to show the good people of Baltimore and other teams. You don't want to pay me $250 guaranteed. Somebody else will. I love this first play. And by the way, Alex, it's just like a 30 or 45-minute show, right? You are aware of that.
Coach, people ask for the long takes,
It's very true. I've always told you I never want you to change anything you do, and I mean that. There's a reason you're you. Now, Dave, I know you've been sitting there like a rabid dog, ready to be let out of the cage. So we've been on the Panthers at the early edge since the trade of Baker Mayfield was announced a couple of months ago. I see that ticket just like a flashing red light in my account. But the quarterback they left behind, I just don't think he's very good. And apparently for week one, neither do you.
No, we're talking about Jacoby Brissett, and I can't think of a more popular player in the National Football League to start with a player prop on than Jacoby Brissett, who has a strong arm, but he's pretty gun shy when he throws. And that's why I like under 33.5 yards as his longest pass completion. Even with the juice at minus 125, I love this one, Coach. His best receivers are Amari Cooper, David Njoku, not exactly guys that can stretch defenses at this point in their careers. 3 throws last year out of 220-something from Jacoby Brissett went for more than 33 yards. That's 1.3% of his throws. Last time we saw Brissett as like a week in, week out starter, 2019, well, he had more throws. 7 out of, 400 some odd pass attempts that went 33 or more yards. That's 1.6%. Literally less than 2% of his throws the last 2 times that he's been on the field have been completed for 34 or more yards. Amari Cooper only had 2 catches over this in 2021, and he had Dak Prescott as his quarterback. On top of all that, the Carolina secondary is pretty solid. I think their defense is pretty underrated overall. I think Brissett's going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. That means that it's going to come down to a major catch and run by somebody to get to 34 yards. I don't think it's happening. I usually hate these types of props, but I'm going to dance all over the place when Jacoby Brissett gets under 33.5 yards of his longest completion.
Alex, go.
Yeah, I think this is a really sneaky good look from Dave. I love this prop. Brissett loves to just attack short, intermediate portions of the field as well. I think he targeted his running back as much as any quarterback on a percentage basis last season. So yeah, I fully agree. Cleveland doesn't really have the personnel either to rip off long plays. It's just a bunch of possession guys and an athletic tight end. So yeah, it would take a pretty ridiculous series of events, I think, to complete a big pass like that. So love this.
Right. You mentioned the check down of the running backs. That's there. But one of the reasons why I love David Njoku in fantasy is that over 27% of his passes have gone to tight ends, not just in Miami last year, but again, going back to 2019 with the Colts, there too. So Njoku's one, maybe we're giving a 2 for 1 here already, but Njoku's over. I kind of like Njoku's over. I think he can get around 50 yards in the game, but I don't think he's going to get it all on one catch.
There's a lot of people in the chat right now going, oh, I'm getting all this information. That's what we do. We don't put people in boxes and say, you're just this. Although you can watch Uncle Dave on Fantasy Football Today, the #1 fantasy football show in all of America. We just borrow him just for a little bit. That's all. By the way, when can they watch that show on Sunday, Dave?
Well, I believe it is 10 a.m. Eastern when we will be live on CBS Sports HQ or free on the CBS Sports app. And I believe there's going to be a show in parallel to that on YouTube on Sunday mornings. And I believe it involves you guys.
Well, I mean, it is a hit show. We call it the Sunday brunch version of Early Edge at 10 a.m. But they can watch both. They can watch us on demand or whatever. But then at noon Eastern time, we'll have a full 1 hour leading up to the 1 o'clock games. So you can watch us there, watch fantasy football today at 10 a.m. But I got to tell you, and I know we got to move on, but I'm a little surprised that Alex is being so giving, because when you give out a prop that you have found happens less than 2% of the time, that's usually Alex's wheelhouse. Now I thought you'd be jealous that he found such a good one, Alex, but no, you're a team player.
I am.
I think deep down he's burning. He's like, I'm gonna go back into the lab. I'm gonna find one that's happened 1% of the time. You know he's going to. You know he's going to. All right,
that's my degenerate nephew you're talking about, Coach. I don't think he's got it in his heart to do it.
Oh man, I love this show so much. All right, next game on the board: Steelers and the Bengals. It's a divisional rivalry right out of the box. Now, Bengals are favored by 6.5. We don't know what Joe Burrow is going to look like. Last night, we should have been a little more cautious on Matthew Stafford. However, one of my cappers thinks that maybe the Bengals will start a little slow, and one wide receiver in particular will start slow. Alex, who am I talking about?
Yeah, this is the play that Uncle Dave might approve of, considering last year he faded this guy quite a bit, as did I. Tyler Boyd, under 4.5 reception. This is by far the juiciest play that I have, but I think the juice is worth the squeeze in this particular prop, Coach. This is just a big number for Boyd. Held under 5 receptions in 10 of 16 games last season. He also only averaged 4.18 receptions per game. He only averaged 5.8 targets per game last year. So 5 receptions is just a very, very big ask for him. We know the Bengals, they possess 2 alpha wide receiver ones who could push for double-digit targets on a weekly basis in T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, playing a Steelers team that the Bengals are 6.5-point favorites against. They also have a low total of 44 points projected between both teams as well. I think for Boyd to even have a shot at 5 receptions, it would require a much more up-tempo game environment, which I do not think this is going to be. Also worth noting that Boyd last season combined for 6 receptions in his 2 games against the Steelers as well. So this was just should have opened at 3.5, and it's why I'm willing to pay the juice here.
You know, I'm not a math major, but that's an average of 3 catches a game for those of you who are trying to do the division or the multiplication. Joe in the chat says, Uncle Dave looks like a suburban money launderer. That's funny. That is funny. I don't care who you are. That's funny.
I wish.
He says, I only wish I could do.
I've got a kid in college. I've got a tuition to pay.
Yeah, you need that money coming in. One of my bookies used to be called Sharky. This is 20 years ago. And you can imagine what his main business was. I never had to use it, but that's what they nicknamed him. All right, I love that Cincinnati play. And you're right, the Steelers, I mean, when you're trying to decide who's going to be your quarterback, you know it's going to be a very conservative game plan for them while they try to figure out if Kenny Pickett's going to come in or if they're going to stick with Trubisky, what they're going to do. But I love the fact that you think it's going to be a slow game script. Love that. All right, now let's switch back over to Dave, because a team, and sometimes, Dave, it's the hard knocks scenario where you watch a team, you fall in love with their head coach, you fall in love with their players, you're like, that's going to be my team this year. And then you remember they're the Detroit Lions, and you remember that the Eagles are going to be a really good team this year. They're favored on the road. What prop do you like in this game, though?
I'm going to go with another quarterback prop. I'm going to say Jared Goff throws a pick. So over 1.5 interception for Jared Goff against a vastly improved Philadelphia Eagles secondary. They added James Bradbury. They added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They're teaming up with Darius Slay, who's an ex-Lion, by the way, and Avonte Maddox is their slot corner. Their pass rush is also improved with Jordan Davis. Fletcher Cox is there, Brandon Graham. Those guys have been there for a while. But I think this might end up being the best defense in the NFC. I think this might end up being the Super Bowl team to come out of the NFC. I love all the fundamentals on Philadelphia. And with the offensive line dinged just a little bit in Detroit, and with Jared Goff having to throw from behind, and Jared Goff being Jared Goff, him throwing an interception wouldn't surprise me. Might happen late. Might be his last pass of the game. But I think at minus 119, I think it's worth the price tag to put down some change on him. Probably my second favorite player prop that I'm going to list here today. Wow. And that's saying something, because the first player prop was under a 2% success rate. I guess in this case, a 98% success rate in favor of our betting friends out there.
I mean, you want to have excellence. That's what Uncle Dave is all about. Alex, you got something to say? Go for it.
I always have something to say, Coach, but yeah, I absolutely love this. I don't typically like interception props for quarterbacks. I think they're somewhat volatile, high variance, but couldn't agree more here. I think the Eagles defense is elite. I love all the additions they made in the offseason. And yeah, full agreement with Dave here. I wish I could come at you with some combative takes, but love everything Dave has so far.
Could you even pretend? Could you even pretend in this case to come up with a combative?
He can't pretend.
No,
he can't pretend.
No. Jared Goff is good. Like, you can't do it.
Eric in the chat said, "No, you can't do it." God, I miss the show so much. Eric says, "Coach trying to instigate a showdown right before our very eyes." Well, of course, I'm always going to try and do that. Are you kidding me? I only give these guys 5 spots every single week.
Coach, do you remember last season, Dave and I had a very, very famous showdown. I think the first showdown in early edge or SportsLine history where there were pizzas on the line. And I actually lost said showdown and had to send 2 deep dish pizzas to Uncle Dave.
How could I forget that, Alex? How could I forget that? And Dave has those in his freezer waiting to eat them this season.
Are you
That's
kidding?
Crazy.
No,
like,
they were gone the second they arrived. And I believe that was the only showdown bet I won, and I believe I lost one to each of you. So those were some really expensive pizzas.
I have like an 85% win rate on showdowns right now. I've been on fire, Dave, since we last were together. Also, something that's changed since the last time you were on the early edge, we've grown. We're bigger now. We've got to pay bills. So hang tight, gentlemen. I want everybody at home to understand just exactly what CBS is bringing to the table this fall. Right here, right now. By the way, did anybody see I normally don't talk trash on other shows, but this was hilarious. Did anybody see Stephen A. Smith today on the First Take? Anybody see that? He was asked, who's going to score the most points this week? He said the Chargers. He said, who's going to win the Raiders game? He said the Raiders.
I make mistakes like that all the time.
They're playing each other. They're playing each other.
Yeah.
Do some homework. They're playing each other. Now, this is a matchup next. And I'm coming to you, Alex, because the Patriots, since Tom Brady left, they've done nothing. The Miami Dolphins, in the offseason, they did everything. New head coach. You've got a quarterback that Tyreek Hill says is better than number 15 in Kansas City. Stop it. Just stop it. But with that being said, again, we don't care about the sides. We care about what's inside the game. Give me one from this game that you like.
Yeah, that's a blasphemous statement, Tyreek. So you better keep that guy's name out your mouth, Tyreek. But we're going Mike Gesicki under 32.5 receiving yards. Coach, you know I've loved fading this guy all offseason. I'm fading all of his season-long stuff. Got some great closing line value on those props. Been talking about it a lot. But yeah, if you've been following my picks, you know that Gesicki is a very popular fade for me. This guy was essentially a big slot wide receiver last year for the Dolphins, which will not be the case this season after the Dolphins acquired Tyreek Hill and also have Jalen Waddle on the roster. New head coach Mike McDaniel from San Francisco. He was the offensive coordinator last year. Prior to that, he was the run game coordinator in San Francisco. He loves to use his tight ends in line and to block quite a bit. We saw George Kittle in that role a lot. That is not Mike Gesicki's game whatsoever. Mike Gesicki is not a competent blocker, in my opinion. You're going to see way less snaps from him. He's going to be on the field a lot less. He's also rumored to be on the trade block all offseason because he is not a scheme fit in this Mike McDaniel offense. Also, I've heard just numerous quotes from various beat writers in Miami saying that he has been much less of a focal point in the offseason or in the offense throughout the offseason. He was also playing deep into the preseason because he was trying to get every rep he could for this very reason. So this is also a very difficult matchup versus New England, who allowed the fewest yards to opposing tight ends last season. Not only were they first in DVOA against opposing tight ends, they gave up 418 yards, Coach, in 17 games 2 tight ends. To put into perspective on how ridiculous that is, the next best team gave up 580. So this is an elite defense when it comes to covering tight ends. Gesicki's not going to be on the field that much, and there are just a lot more mouths to feed in this offense as well. So I love fading Mike Gesicki under 32.5 yards, and probably the most difficult possible matchup for him this weekend against New England.
Educate and entertain, baby. Educate and entertain. My man Alex just gave you about 8 different reasons to play this prop. That 50-50 guy, I don't know where he is. He left a long time ago. By the way, Jairi in the chat says, Coach, you know this is the only show that we watch. I know, but I got to respect the other ones. I know they're not as good, but I got to respect them. Now, Dave, I felt like you were standing there for the Star-Spangled Banner during that entire take, getting ready. And apparently, the Atlanta Falcons don't like the Star-Spangled Banner because it was played in their house last year. They were 0-7 against the spread, but they'll start at home this year against the new-look Jameis Winston-led New Orleans Saints. Now, speaking of Winston, once again, you're attacking a quarterback. Talk to me.
3 for 3 on the quarterback props. And might I say, an incredible segue to this game when bringing up my hand on my chest. And Falcons must not like it when they play at home because they were terrible at home. They're going to be terrible again. But I don't think Jameis Winston's going to be the main reason why they lose on Sunday. I think it's going to be a game where Alvin Kamara just loads up against them. So I will take under 29.5 pass attempts for Jameis Winston at minus 104. So not as bad of a vig as we're used to seeing on some of these other props. He was under 30 pass attempts in 4 of 6 games last year with the Saints. He was actually under 31 in 5 of 6, but trying to focus on that number 30. What that tells me is that this Saints coaching staff, and yes, it's still the same staff, just without Sean Payton there, they didn't want to let him throw all over the place. If they could win a game being balanced or maybe even a little more run heavy and not necessarily hustling with the football, they would take that. And they did that early in the year last year, and they did it often with Winston under center. They clearly don't want to have him be the focal point of their offense. They're good with Alvin Kamara. I don't blame them for it. And the matchup is great. The Falcons defense has a bunch of injuries right now, a lot of starters on IR. The defense for New Orleans is great. I think that's going to help them control the game clock. Their own offensive line is great. That's going to help their run game. I don't think Jameis is going to have to do a whole lot. He is ranked way low in my quarterback rankings this week. Not that people are excited or not excited or even have Jameis Winston on a lot of their 1 QB fantasy teams. But if you were thinking about it, don't do it. And I think that extends to the receivers too. Winston's not going to throw a lot. You should cash in.
I was listening to a radio show on the ESPN affiliate out here yesterday, and they were doing an interview, and they asked the guy about the Saints, and the host, I almost drove off the road. He said this. He goes, a lot of people are talking about Jameis Winston as an MVP candidate this year. What are your thoughts on that? And I'm like, what? Who is talking about this guy as an MVP candidate? I'm not. Are you guys? Oh, you are, Alex.
I'm not necessarily talking about Jameis as an MVP candidate. I just have a quick counterpoint to Dave's play is The Saints did lack the personnel last season to really throw the ball a lot. We had Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith at the top of the depth chart. Their wide receiver group looks a lot better this year. Michael Thomas, Olave, the rookie, and Jarvis Landry from the Browns, the great possession receiver and slot receiver. So there are more weapons at Jameis's disposal. Not saying I dislike the play or anything like that, but this is going to be a much better offense, in my opinion, as far as the passing game is concerned this year.
I think that is you saying you dislike the play. And the only thing that I would counter with is that they don't need these guys to contend with the Falcons this week. And we know that Michael Thomas isn't at 100%. This feels like a good opportunity for him to just kind of get back into the swing of things. Remember, he didn't even play in the preseason. He was out for half the preseason with an injury. Olave, it's his first NFL game. I don't think they're going to try and rush him. Jarvis Landry, it's his 900th NFL game. He's been around a long time. Maybe take it easy on him as well. I think they're going to be very conservative in this matchup.
Anything else, Alex?
Again, I honestly don't dislike the play. I just wanted to put that out there.
You know me. I'm just an innocent bystander. I will sit here and let you guys
Sure.
argue all.
If I felt it was
long.
showdown worthy, I have. I'm not afraid
That's
to
what
say
I'm
it
kind of trying
whatsoever.
to do.
Come on!
Showdown
I
going,
would
but
tell
do
you.
not
Come
work.
on!
Do not
I
work.
have so much conviction. I am the least afraid person of a showdown. So if I
That's
felt that I
true.
had an edge on the other side, I would have zero problem telling you
Okay.
guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Eric wants it. Eric's like, give me the showdown. All right. There it is. I smell a showdown. I smell it. Hit the mute. Everybody's asking for it.
We're getting there. We're getting
there. This is week 1. Everybody wants to get along. Believe me, by week 4, we'll have 3 a show. All right, next game. What do we call, Alex, when it's 2 horrible teams and people say nobody's paying attention to that game? We don't see this as a game nobody's paying attention to. What do we see it as?
Coach, we see this as a land of opportunities because this game has so many potential spots. Who cares that these teams aren't potential Super Bowl contenders? We're talking about the Washington Commanders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. There are a ton of props to be had in this game. We could sneakily see a shootout here with plenty of overs going off. So, yeah, I love 2 props in this. I guess that's a good chance to tell you about them. First up, Evan Ingram over 24.5 receiving yards. I think Jacksonville was an excellent landing spot for Evan Ingram. Well, if you look at what Ingram did over the last few years, while he was long misused by a clueless and ineffective Giants coaching staff, he could return to form in this Jaguars offense. As a rookie, if you remember, he had 64 receptions, 772 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I believe he was the tight end 4 in fantasy that year. He could command a surprising target share in a Jags offense without a dominant wideout. Also, Jags' new head coach, Doug Peterson, loves tight ends, had a tremendous amount of success with tight ends. Zach Ertz recorded 357 receptions in his first 4 seasons under Peterson. Dallas Goedert even had success as a tight end 2 behind Zach Ertz in that Doug Peterson offense. So this is just, like I said, a great landing spot. I know that was really a big point for Ingram's signing there as well. Ingram's issues with drops, meanwhile, has been overblown in recent years. Last season, he dropped 8% of his targets, 13th highest among tight ends and lower than Goddard, I might add as well. Again, this is also a friendly matchup versus the Washington Commanders. They give up the 9th most yards to opposing tight ends last season. Their starting safety, Cameron Curl, will also be inactive, which certainly can't hurt the matchup either. 24.5 yards is 2 catches, Coach. I think also Trevor Lawrence loves targeting his tight ends. So this one checks every box for me. Evan Ingram over 24.5 receiving yards, Coach. Love this one.
I got to say, Alex, I'm a little disappointed in you.
Why,
little disappointed. I cannot take credit for this. Somebody texted me and they said, when you ask him, what do we see it as? Why did he not say a opportunity? Come on.
I'm disappointed in myself.
Come on. That, of course, was the jeweler. How does the jeweler come up with that and you don't come up with that?
It's a very good question, Coach. And I do have one more play from this game. Jahan Dotson, rookie wide receiver, over 34.5 receiving yards. Dotson has pretty much flown under the radar all offseason. Barely heard a word about him, despite being the 16th overall pick and I believe it was the 5th wide receiver drafted last year. Terry McLaurin, who's the alpha number 1 wide receiver in Washington, but Dotson is going to be an every down running mate at the Z spot in that offense. Reports out of the Commanders training camp had Dotson and Carson Wentz striking up a great connection. These two were playing together while McLaurin was negotiating his contract, so they have gotten a ton of reps together, and I've heard Carson Wentz feels more comfortable throwing the ball to Dotson than he even does Terry McLaurin. I also think this is a great matchup against these Jaguars. They were 31st in pass defensive DVOA, dead last in opponent completion rate, 27th in yards per attempt, 24th in fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers last year as well. Logan Thomas is still recovering from a major knee injury that he had in December. He's questionable at best. If he plays, I don't know how effective he'll be. And this matchup just has sneaky shootout potential as well. I think Dotson's going to turn a lot of heads starting this week in a great matchup versus Jacksonville.
I love both of those takes. But do you know who else is also disappointed in you, Alex?
Coach,
Noah. Noah's disappointed in you.
The boss.
The boss.
Uh-oh.
It's not a good look. That is
Not a
not a
great look
good
at
look.
all.
I'm just going to say it's not a good look. Not a good look. All kidding aside, it's not a good look. We'll try to navigate through it, though, because we still have a couple more picks to get through and then a couple from the chat. Jairi, I see your question. We'll get to it in a second. Dave, I'm coming back to you because I just told that story about Stephen A. First take, Raiders and Chargers. We just so happen to have that game. I probably should have waited to tell that joke before this one, but that's okay. That's okay. Chargers are favored in this game. Total is 52. And you have really focused week one on quarterbacks. Talk to me.
That's by design, Coach. I think that's the safest position to put your
agree.
money on in week one of the NFL season, particularly veteran quarterbacks who have been around a long time. You'll see that with my last prop too. Justin Herbert's going over 283.5 passing yards. I have no idea why this number is as low as it is. Maybe the books think that he's going to get hurt or something like that. But this is not a Chargers team that likes to run the football. They're going to throw it a lot. And I think Herbert's going to do plenty of it against this Las Vegas Raiders defense. The secondary isn't very good. The pass rush is better. I'll grant you that. But I think the improved offensive line for the Chargers is going to be a big factor for this year for LA. I think they're going to be great. He's been over this number in 2 of his last 3 games against the Raiders, and he's averaged more than this in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL. So why is it so low? Don't ask questions. Just go take the over on this one.
Bang it.
283.5 passing yards at minus 117.
Oh, can't beat the juice. You can't beat the number. I would guess by Sunday when we revisit these plays, this number will be 290, 291. Yep. There's a reason we do the show on Friday. Said, I love this on a Friday afternoon. Well, there's a reason for it. It's not just, hey, we got nothing else to do on Fridays. It's always strategic. Always strategic. Get the number out on Friday. Do not wait. And some of you, depending on your book, look, they come out at a certain time. You got to get the number or they go like this. All right. Last play on the board, and we'll answer a couple of questions. Packers, Vikings. Aaron Rodgers has nobody to throw to anymore. He's got no weapons. They're young. They need work. They don't know what they're doing, which translates, Dave, into what?
It translates into what I think is my favorite player prop of the week because we're getting odds in our favor, and it's crazy. But it's a little bit of a crazy bet. It's Aaron Rodgers going under 1.5 passing touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers not throwing 2 touchdowns, it seems blasphemous. But let's think about it. Devontae Adams, he's in Vegas now. Alan Lazard, he's doubtful, not going to play. Who's left for Aaron Rodgers to throw to? You've got Sammy Watkins. You've got Randall Cobb. You've got a couple of rookies and Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. You've got a tight end, Robert Tonyan. You've got those running backs. The running backs can catch the ball. Maybe they can make a play. But expecting 2 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers, yes, of course it can happen. But when you're getting plus 159 as your odds, I think you're willing to take that bet quite a bit. And I think these running backs, they're going to do a lot of work in Green Bay, but it's going to be on handoffs. I don't think Aaron Rodgers should involve them a ton in the passing game. Aaron Rodgers probably doesn't even want to. Rodgers isn't the kind of guy that likes to dink and dunk his throws. He wants to air it out. But look at who he's airing it out to. A couple of old dudes and a couple of inexperienced dudes. And remember last year, Green Bay didn't play their starters in the preseason. What happened in week 1? They went to Jacksonville to play the Saints. That's something that actually happened. And the Saints kicked their butts. Rodgers even got pulled in the game. In fact, Aaron Rodgers has 1 touchdown or no touchdowns in 3 of his past 5 week 1 games. So not exactly the fastest starter right out the gate. Great track record against Minnesota. This is a defense that's going to get after him quite a bit. And the cherry on top is news that happened while we were recording the show. The Packers injury report is out. Nope. David Bakhtiari, the starting left tackle, questionable for the game, did not practice on Friday, will not be at 100%. The other starting tackle is Elton Jenkins. He's also questionable. He's already banged up. So both of those tackles that are protecting Aaron Rodgers, they're not going to be at 100% already. And this Vikings defense is going to be better, and they're going to be aggressive, and they're going to come after Rodgers. And I think it could be a nightmare for Green Bay. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a hard time completing 2 touchdowns.
Well, you know those ends are going to go up the field, make him come up in the pocket. Those wideouts, he won't be able to see him from there. And this could be a long afternoon, just what you are describing. I love this play also. Quickly from the chat, Alex, let me come back to you. There is a boost, and you know how we feel about boosts. We don't like them. There's a reason they're a boost. But Derrick Henry, 2 touchdowns, plus 350 in game 1.
Not terrible. Again, I don't personally bet touchdown props. I just don't think there's a lot of edge to be had. They're somewhat speculative, but if you want to have some fun, you're a fan of Derrick Henry, maybe you own him in fantasy, go for it. But I just don't think there's a ton of value there.
Dave, your thoughts on that?
I think he can do it. I just wish the odds were a little bit higher. Plus 350 on a 2 touchdown scorer doesn't feel that high. I get why it's low. It's Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I would rather just I'd probably take the over on his rushing.
A good exercise to do would be to look at how many times Derrick Henry has had 2 touchdown games in his career, divide it by the number of games that he's appeared in, and then weigh that against those odds, what you're getting, and you can figure out if it's a good value or not.
Right. There's no chance the value is good.
See, that right there is why we have professionals that do this, and that's why you watch the show, but you're a part of the show, because this is the kind of stuff that I don't even know to look for. And I'm here every single day. This is next level type of capping. That's why they have the absolute best. Real quick, before we get off, so many people love to bet overs. I'm one of them. Please, Alex, in 15 to 30 seconds, explain why unders in props are usually way more profitable than overs.
Yeah, even just from a historical standpoint, Coach, unders have hit at nearly a 60% rate across the board. Years ago, actually, you could just look at the highest projected totals as far as props were concerned and just close your eyes and just bet under, and you would come out with a decent win rate. There's just a lot more ways for a play to go under, whether it be ineffectiveness, coaching, a guy getting demoted, a guy getting injured. You also start out with a victory as well. And people are just more intuitively inclined to bet over. So there's just going to be some inherent value betting under. So definitely something you want to consider and try and train yourself to look for more and more and more.
There you go. By the way, Nick, we see his text right there. He's trying to be positive, but yes, he's being negative. Let's really dissect that text for a second. Over 200 people watching and less than 70 likes. Let's hit the like button. That's the positive. You've got the dynamic duo in front of you. Which 2 is he talking about? There's 3 on the screen. I'm guessing I'm the one he's leaving out. And Nick, I've got an issue with that. I've got an issue with that. Oh, my goodness. Taking a backhanded slap right across the face. But that's okay. I'm just here to navigate and be the point guard. I say it all the time. They're the stars of the show, and I mean that. So grab your paper, grab your pencil. Here is the recap, courtesy of the jeweler on the 1s and the 2s, and this looks absolutely glorious. PropStarz, Lamar Jackson, going to prove everybody wrong. Playing like an MVP starting week 1. Tyler Boyd, sorry, son. You're not going to get the targets this week. Mike Gesicki, you can't even be in the offense. This number won't be around for several weeks. Get it this week. Evan Ingram, Jacksonville, over 24.5 reception. Somebody's got to catch the football. And Jahan Dotson for Washington over his receiver prop. Then Uncle Dave is on Jacoby Brissett for Cleveland, Jared Goff for Detroit, Winston for the Saints, Herbert for the Chargers, and then finally Aaron Rodgers. 1 touchdown pass. That's all he gets this week. Plus 159. Man, I love that number. Don't forget, we've got the prop shop every single Wednesday. We will tweet at the time. And then, of course, Alex is a part of our shows all day on Sunday, 10 a.m., noon, 7:30. And, of course, Dave, you can find him on Fantasy Football Today. Next show, 10 a.m. Sunday morning, I believe. Did I get all that right?
You got it. 10 a.m. Sunday morning, CBS Sports HQ.
Boom. And we'll be here every single Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. But that is all the damage that we can currently do. So with that being said, there's only one thing left to do. And I believe you all know what that is. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these prop tickets straight to the pay window. For my entire crew, love them all. Uncle Dave, PropStarz, jeweler on the 1s and the 2s. I am the coach. It doesn't matter the sport, the time, the day. Oh, did you know we haven't missed a day since December 2020? Find me another brand that's done that. They don't exist. Only here at the Early Edge. Good luck.